Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing into a genuinely fascinating concept. We're looking at why deploying AI isn't just some standard technology scaling problem, but rather a profound risk to your organization and processes. Look, if you've been working with artificial intelligence at all, you already know about the technical hurdles. But the real challenge? It's actually hiding in plain sight, sitting right inside your current, everyday operations. So let's start with a pretty stark realization. Early on in basically any AI project, the tech feels, well, incredibly powerful, almost magical. But there's this very specific moment that hits every single organization. It's the moment when AI absolutely stops looking like magic and starts behaving exactly like a mirror. At some point in your deployment journey, it stops dazzling you and just reflects your own messy, duct-taped organizational reality right back at your face. We all know this exact life cycle, right? Step one, the pilot. The numbers come back looking flawless, exactly like the pitch deck said they would. Then you hit step two, the demo. You blow the executive team away, and suddenly everyone genuinely believes the future has arrived. But then, well, you hit the real world. Step three is production. The illusion completely drops, and suddenly, this hidden organization appears out of nowhere.
Here's how we're going to unpack this today. We'll start with the production reality, uncover the hidden organization, look at how AI fails differently, figure out finding the human buffer, and finally, managing AI risk. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with section one, the production reality, or the shift from the magic to the mirror. Let's talk about that abrupt crash from a perfect pilot down to the totally messy reality of production. The second you move out of the sandbox, that carefully controlled, pristine testing environment absolutely shatters. You are no longer dealing with clean, perfectly curated inputs. Instead, the system meets the wild, untamed reality of your daily operations. And that exposes what the source material brilliantly calls the hidden organization. But what exactly is that? That brings us to section two, the hidden organization and its four silent buffers. Let's uncover what this hidden organization is actually made of and why you probably had zero idea it was even there. Take a really close look at these four pillars in your legacy systems. Technically speaking, they aren't broken. First off, your data wasn't wrong. It just meant slightly different things in different departments. Second, your workflow wasn't actually broken. It just secretly depended on someone, like Bob in accounting, manually fixing formatting errors every single Friday to handle the exceptions. Third, security wasn't missing. It just implicitly assumed a human being would be sitting right where automation now wants total authority. And fourth, your architecture wasn't failing at all. It just had never, ever been asked to operate continuously across systems at the blinding speed of AI. So here is the absolutely crucial point. Your current systems only function because human beings are quietly acting as organizational shock absorbers. None of those four things I just mentioned are actual defects on paper, but together, they form a massive, totally invisible buffer, and AI is about to violently rip that buffer right out of your organization. Moving into section three, how AI fails differently, focusing on loud versus silent failures. This brings us to a frankly terrifying operational shift, because AI failures look absolutely nothing like the traditional software bugs we are so used to dealing with.
Think about this stark contrast. Traditional systems break loudly. Something stops working, a big error surfaces, throughput tanks, and the phone immediately starts ringing. It's local and someone notices before the damage gets out of hand. But AI failure, it's a completely different beast. AI executes ambiguity silently, confidently, and repeatedly. No alarm bells go off. The dashboard looks perfectly green and healthy. And by the time you actually notice the pattern, the AI has already confidently fired off the exact same wrong answer 10,000 times, beating it straight to your customers and regulators.
I really want you to let this sink in. The core danger here is not just a hallucination or a simple algorithmic inaccuracy. AI fails fundamentally because it totally compresses the distance between cause and consequence. It completely removes the human friction that used to catch all those tiny mistakes. It is literally the speed and the silence of the system that creates the massive risk. All right, section four, finding the human buffer by spotting the amber dots. Now that we clearly see the immense danger of silent failure, let's look at a really practical exercise to actively hunt down these invisible human safety nets in your own company, long before the AI ever goes live. You can't just talk about this stuff in the abstract, you've got to map it out. Step one, pick a real, detailed workflow that you know inside and out.
Step 2, map that process end to end, from the initial request all the way to the decision and down to the final action. Step 3 is the big one. Visually mark every single point where a real person stops to interpret, correct, reconcile, approve, or even just slow the process down for a second. Finally, step 4. Look at that map and ask yourself the hard question. If AI just completely removed those pauses and blasted right through, what would break first?
When you actually sit down and do this mapping, you're going to start seeing these little points of friction. Let's call them amber dots, sitting between the request, the decision, and the action. Every single amber dot is a human buffer, and every buffer is basically an unwritten question. Listen, if you can't explicitly name what the people at these amber dots are actually doing, like what tiny undocumented reconciliations they're making every single day, you aren't automating around them. You're just automating straight over them. You're literally paving right over your organization's unwritten safety net. To truly find these dots in your own organization, you got to ask yourself some pretty critical questions. Start with this one. Where exactly are people correcting system output before the end user ever sees it? Seriously, think about those invisible cleanup crews operating in the shadows of your company right now. The folks who quietly fix up a spreadsheet or tweak a weird formatting error right before hitting send. You also need to ask this. Where does your process rely on a human judgment call rather than a hard, mathematically programmable rule? This is so crucial because AI operates purely on definition. If your process requires even a little bit of subtle interpretation, like reading between the lines of a really confusing customer email, AI is just going to force a highly confident answer right in the exact spot where a human being would naturally pause and say, hey, we need some clarity here. And finally, Section 5, Managing AI Risk with the Readiness Playbook. Once you've actually mapped out all your buffers, how do you structure your organization's readiness? Well, you need the right frameworks. We've got 2 incredibly powerful anchors that you should absolutely keep on your desk to manage all this. First, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. This beauty treats AI risk as a full lifecycle and governance problem. It gives you the exact language you need to discuss controls way before they are ever tested in production. It basically sets your guardrails. Second, you pair that with Andrew Ng's AI Transformation Playbook. This frames AI adoption not just as plugging in a new tool, but as deep, structural, organizational work. It establishes your cadence. So one framework tells you exactly how to stay safe, while the other tells you exactly how to move forward. As we wrap things up today, I want you to keep this one directive in your head. Find the buffer, then decide whether to keep it. Remember, AI absolutely does not need to be perfect to do real damage. It only needs to be incredibly confident, blindingly fast, and totally unsupervised in a place where you previously, quietly, relied on a real human being to slow things down.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to challenge how you view your own operations from here on out. Take a really hard look at your absolute most important daily workflow and ask yourself if this process ran continuously at light speed without a single moment of human intervention, what would fail first? Finding the honest answer to that question is your actual first step in AI readiness. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep asking the hard questions.